That is what I call Steelers football. 2 weeks in a row, 2 major wins for this team. They defeat the Seattle Seahawks to keep their playoffs hope alive. They can still make the NFL playoffs. They really can. They're going to need a lot of help. They have the Indianapolis Colts in front of them, and they also have the Houston Texans in front of them as well. But one thing I'm looking at right now with this Steelers team, they may have the right quarterback on this roster, and his name for sure isn't Mitch Trubisky, who should be cut after this season and should never put on another NFL jersey. And it's not Kenny Pickett either. Mason Rudolph has looked better than both of those guys. I understand there's only 2 games, but Mason Rudolph was more decisive, got the ball out quicker, and gave George Pickens an opportunity. When was the last time George Pickens looked this good in back-to-back games? And it's not the offensive play call that was a problem either. Yes, Matt Canada was terrible, but Mason Rudolph is light years better than Kenny Pickett, and he's light years better than Mitch Trubisky as well. I think that you finish the season off with Mason Rudolph, you retain him this offseason, and you move forward with him. You can still draft a quarterback or try to get a quarterback in free agency, but Mason Rudolph right now is the best quarterback on this Steelers roster, and that's not even up for debate. Najee Harris had a great game in this game against the Seattle Seahawks, and so did Jaylen Warren. Najee Harris had 27 carries for 122 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. He had a beautiful play to where he just completely stiffed on Tariq Woolen out of his face, just knocked him 5 yards back. This was a Najee Harris that people were waiting to see since they drafted him out of Alabama. The reason why he wasn't able to get things going is because they were stacked the box against the Steelers offense. They haven't done that in the last 2 weeks. The Bengals tried to. George Pickens and Mason Rudolph made them pay. You see what having a good company quarterback can do for you? It opens up that run game. And also give Jaylen Warren credit as well. On 13 carries, he had 75 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. This was old school type of Steelers football right here. They ran the football down the Seattle Seahawks' throat over and over again, and it was a beautiful play action pass to George Pickens as well. I'm telling you, Mason Rudolph was electric in this game. George Pickens had 7 catches for 131 receiving yards. Deontay Johnson had 4 catches for 76 receiving yards. Would you believe me if I told you that it was only 2 receivers that got action in this game? Because that was it. And Pat Freiermuth was the only tight end that got action in this game. 44 receiving yards off of 3 catches. Besides that, those are the top receiving targets with this team in this game. Jaylen Warren did have reception. Well, 4 receptions that went for 23 yards. That was it. They kept it limited. And I love that. Get Deontay Johnson involved and get George Pickens involved as well. Especially get George Pickens involved. These wide receivers are elite level, in my opinion. They have just been held back by horrible play calling and horrible quarterback play. And yeah, Kenny Pickett is catching some strays right now because I was completely wrong about him. This is how he should have looked with this team, but instead he didn't. And my fear is that next week, Mike Tomlin may give the reins back over to Kenny Pickett. I hope that's not the case. Continue to roll with Mason Rudolph. Because today, he was a field general. He got the ball out quick, and he deserves his opportunity with this team. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do next season if they do not make the NFL playoffs. But hopefully they can retain this kid at that quarterback spot. As far as the defense, they did a very good job today on Geno Smith and crew. They only had 1 sack as a team, but I would take that. They kept them under duress the entire game, and they were making some big plays across the board. Surprisingly enough, Nick Herbig was the guy that came away with the sack in this game. Joy Porter Jr. came away with a great pass deflection on DK Metcalf, and he had a great play to where he bumped him to the sideline, to where DK Metcalf had no room on the sideline to operate. I love that. I love that. That's when Joy Porter Jr. is at his best, when he's not holding on, when he's getting physical with one of those bigger wide receivers and he's passing that test. He was on him from hip to hip. You look at Eric Rowe, another good game in this game with the Steelers at the safety position, led the team in tackles. Miles Jack looked very good in this game as well. And this is a guy that's subbing in for Orlando Roberts, who was out for this game. No Cole Holcomb. No Quan Alexander. You got Miles Jack off the streets, basically. He's been with this team the last couple of weeks trying to up his cardio, trying to get into football shape. He's looked good in back-to-back weeks. Had a great game last week and had a very solid game this week as well. Larry Ogunjobi kept blowing the run up with the Seattle Seahawks. He made them one-dimensional in the second half. I love that for this team. Patrick Peterson also had some good plays in this game as well. He was tackling all over the place, but I'm very surprised by Eric Rowe and how good he's looked with this team in the last 2 weeks. Levi Wallace had some big plays in this game as well, but give credit to the defensive coordinator for coming out and adjusting, especially after halftime, because the Seahawks are putting up a huge fight, and they did put up a fight in this game. I want to say this as well. Give the offensive coordinators credit in the Steelers game as well. We have dogged them out in the past, especially when it was Matt Canada, But they have done a very good job by getting guys involved and just keeping Mason Rudolph upright. The offensive line has looked better. The wide receivers have looked better. And overall, the team has looked better in these last 2 weeks. When was the last time in back-to-back games the Steelers have scored 30 plus? It's been quite a long time. A very long time. The last time they did this was with Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown. And when they had Juju Smith-Schuster on the roster, that this offense has looked this good. I'm not saying that Mason Rudolph is Big Ben 2.0. But he has looked very good in the last couple of weeks. And I will say this about Coach Tomlin. I'm upset with him. Not because they have looked good in the last 2 weeks. It's the fact that he held Mason Rudolph down this long. When they went on that losing streak against the Cardinals, against the Colts, against the Patriots, you could have put in Mason Rudolph. And you could have been competitive in those games and possibly won those games. I know for a fact this team could have went out there and they could have competed with the Indianapolis Colts if you had Mason Rudolph out there. But instead, they wanted to keep Mitch Trubisky out there, who was a horrible option with this team. So moving forward, hopefully Mason Rudolph is the guy with this team, but this was a great Steelers win. It keeps them in the playoff sweepstakes, and hopefully they can make the NFL playoffs. If not, they're going to have a lot of things to talk about this offseason, that quarterback position, and most importantly, that head coach position with this team as well, because Mike Tomlin's not fully off the hot seat, and yet again, he will not have another losing season. For the people that care about that statistic, I'm one of those guys. I said it over and over again, week to week. I don't care about that statistic. If you're not making the Super Bowl, you're not making the Super Bowl push, that's a losing season, especially for the Steelers in the last couple of years. They haven't had a playoff win in 2016, and if they do miss the playoffs this year, you do have to question Mike Tomlin for that, because of the simple fact that you decided to keep Mason Rudolph on the bench this long. And it wasn't like Kenny Pickett was playing lights out either. The only game that Kenny Pickett looked solid in this season was against the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm happy for Mason Rudolph because he's been through hell with this franchise the last couple of years. He's been disrespected by Coach Tomlin because he didn't give him the opportunity to go out there and start, even in practices and training camp. The man was scout team. He was a scout team's quarterback. And if you know anything about scout team, you're not getting real reps. That's going to the second and first string with this team, with a starter with this team. But let me know in the comment section below how you feel about the Steelers. This was a strong win, and it keeps Mike Tomlin above 500 for his career for never having a losing season. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, when each and every last one, guys, stay safe, stay positive, especially as we head towards a brand new year. God bless every single last one of you guys. Thanks for watching my videos, and thanks for the support all year long. Love you guys. Peace.